Okay, we are doing the recipe for today. We started. You guys with me? Good. Anything you say could be recorded on Zoom, and that's going to be on you to find on the internet later. So, dun, dun, dun. I don't know if the volume's that good, but potentially, if you say it, the thing picks it up. It's online. We are number 3 of p.4, and we're still doing point slope form. So we've got 2 more problems, and I still want you to leave it in this point slope form. No need to simplify, no need to move on. You'll notice the next set of problems does that, okay? Now, we did some of the easy ones where we just did a plug and chug. We did one where we had to find slope first. Now, on letters C and D, it's talking about parallel and perpendicular. Can you remind me, the slopes, when slopes are parallel, they're what to each other? The same. What's the key word that I use with perpendicular?
Same.
Flipped. So we say reciprocal. What else do I say? Opposite reciprocal. Very good. So if it's positive, it goes negative. If it was negative, it's positive. And then reciprocal means that it's flipped. Okay. So that being said, we're going to use this information. We may need to find our slopes in these, and then we're just going to leave it into point slope form. Okay, so I've got this equation. I'm going to solve it for y. Let's minus that x off of both sides. And then let's divide by 4 everywhere. I don't really care what this equation is. All I care about is the slope. And the slope is going to be what? Positive or negative? Negative. Good. So my slope here is negative 1/4, and that is what I'm going to use for my m. That's my m. I have my x1, y1 over here, and I'm just going to plug them into my point slope form. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And when I plug my pieces in, I get y minus negative 1, which I can make a plus, equals negative 1/4 times x minus 1. And I know, again, you might be tempted to simplify. We're not doing that yet. Wait like 2 more minutes, and then we'll simplify. Cool. All right, moving on. Same idea for the next one, but this is perpendicular. So again, find your slope, then do your opposite reciprocal, and then we'll plug and chug. Once we simplified it down, we were able to get that this slope right here is what? 1/3. And then what would my opposite reciprocal of 1/3 be? Negative 3. Good. So we're going to use negative 3. And then we're going to plug into our point slope form. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Y minus 7 equals negative 3 times x minus negative 3, or x plus 3. That's not too bad, is it? Okay, let's keep moving. The only thing we're adding now is we're going to go all the way down to y equals mx plus b. The only change in direction says use slope-intercept form. And slope-intercept form, as you guys reminded me yesterday or whenever the last time I saw you, y equals mx plus b. So you are not done until your answer looks like that, which honestly is probably more normal for you. You probably want to put it in that way. Now, I will be quiet in a second and let you just kind of work on your own. However, I do want to mention that there are 2 directions that you could go for this. My natural way, if you just said, Miss White, sit and do these problems how you want to do them, I would always plug into point slope first. So I'm going to know my x1, y1, and my m, and I'm going to plug into point slope. And then I'm going to distribute and then move that 8 to the other side to get into slope intercept. So I will distribute that 6. And I will add that 8 to both sides. And then I am in slope intercept form. Okay. Now, that's not what all teachers do. So another thing that your teacher might have taught you was to go this way, to use your slope intercept and just plug in your x. Ooh, that's way too big. Plug in your x, y, and your m in there. So you might do 8 equals 6 times negative 5 plus b. Does that look familiar to some of you? I am gonna, like, in my heart, I wanna do the blue way, but I can do both directions so you can see. At the end of the day, you'll get the same answer, so it doesn't matter. It's just about, are you good plugging it back in and remembering that you're not done just when you get B. Your answer has to be y equals 6x plus 38. Okay. But at least one of those ways looks good for everybody, right? Whether it's the blue or whether it's the pink. Okay. I think you can probably do most of this on your own. So I'll do the next one. I'll kind of remind you when I'm at like a stopping point so you can check in, but just see if you can work through the next three on your own. Since they're like ones that we've already done, I bet you can do them without me. So now I've got B on the board as well, so you can check in with A and B. I'll leave it there for 1 second and then I'll move on. Next one uses parallel and perpendicular, so it's kind of same concept we were talking about a few minutes ago. I know I got some fraction work on letter C, but there's that answer either way. Remember, if you're struggling with the fractions, get those like denominators. So when I did 8/3 minus 2, I got like denominator of 3. So 6/3 is the same thing as 2. And then 8 minus 6 is a lot easier to do than 8/3 minus 2. I'll leave that up so you can see it, but I'm going to start working on slope in my next one. Now I also have a D on the board. D actually worked out. I didn't get any crazy decimals or fractions or anything, so. We doing okay with this so far? Okay, awesome. We are gonna need, or at least I'm gonna use a graphing calculator for the next part, so if you have one, let's maybe get that out on your desk. If you don't have one, one thing that I like to use is an app called Calculate 84. It's this like blue calculator app right there. It's free. I put it on my iPad. I know you don't have your phones right now, but like at a different time, I put on your phone. That way, if you don't want to lug your graphing calculator around all day, you at least have something. And if you don't have a graphic calculator, follow along with me on Calculate 84. I think that's good. If you have something else that you like to use, go for that too. It doesn't really matter to me.
What did you get for D? Yeah.
Is that what you got? Right. We're just gonna do a little reminder of graphing calculator stuff. You guys did stuff on the calculator last year in Algebra 2, right?
Yeah.
Good. Maxes, mins, intersections, windows, all that fun stuff. Okay, perfect. Today will be a nice little review then. All right, we got some word problems that we need to get through. This first one says Bob Michaels purchased a house 8 years ago for $42,000. For anyone hoping to buy a home soon, houses are way more expensive than that. Don't expect anything under 100K. That's not a piece of trash. This year appraised for $67,500. And the first thing it wants us to do is write a linear equation. And they're using V equals MT plus B. When I look at that, that's the same thing as Y equals MX plus B. What do you think the T means? And what do you think the V means? Time. Value. So if I'm looking at money, is that going to go in for my T time or for my V volume? Money is going to be for value, right? Time is going to be in what measure of time?
Years.
Years. Very good. So sometimes at the very beginning, I like to like reorient myself and see where are we going, what's going on, okay? So if I have a years, it's going in for time, or you can even think of that in terms of X, and then my value or my money is going in for my Y. So just kind of reorient yourself where we're at, okay? First thing we need to do though is write this linear equation. We got to find out what our M is. And in order to find our M, I like to think of those values in like ordered pairs, okay? The easiest thing I think is we're going to start at year 0. So this person has owned the house for 0 years. How much did it cost? $42,000. Good. So at 0 years, we haven't owned it yet. We just bought it. $42,000. Now, 8 years later, that means that now he's owned it for 8 years. It costs that $67,500, right? So that ordered pair is going to look like this. So first thing I like to do is kind of put it in terms of an ordered pair. And now I'm going to like very easily be able to make this a slope because I can label x1, y1, x2, y2, and I can plug into my slope equation. So we'll use those numbers. We'll jump over here and we'll say slope is equal to 67,500 minus 42,000 over 8 minus 0. The only thing I'll just really make sure that you're aware of is keep track of all your zeros. When we're doing 42,000, it's really easy to lose a 0 here and there. So make sure you got all your zeros with you. When I subtract that out, when I work it out, I am getting a decimal. I get 3,187.5. I will switch to my calculator, but I don't have it like toggle back and forth yet. So just trust me on that one. That's my slope. Now, your y-intercept might be very easy to spot, and I'll talk about that in a second. If it's not, you can always just go back to your points here and use one of those points and plug in. And just with no other knowledge, I'm going to use this one to plug into either my slope-intercept or point slope to find my full equation. So I'm going to do point slope like I have been doing. Y minus 42,000 equals, I'm running out of space. Equals 3,187.5 times x minus 0. Now, when I do times x minus 0, that gets rid of that number. So I just get y minus 42,000 equals 3,187.5x And then I simply move that 42,000 over to the other side. So y equals 3,187.5 x plus 42,000. That's it. Now, some of you might have noticed or maybe see a pattern here. Because I was at x equals 0, I already had my y-intercept, so you could have just noticed your b there from the beginning. However, it doesn't always work like that, so I wanted to practice picking a point, plugging it back in. Is everybody good with that? Okay, we're going to use this equation for most of the rest of this problem. The next one says, graph the equation and estimate in how many years after purchase the house will be worth $72,500. So the minute it says graph, I'm going to go put in my calculator. I am not drawing 42,000 little lines on my paper. I'm going to go in my calculator and I'm going to graph it. And I'm going to make a note just so I don't have an answer and I'm like, how did I do it? Graph and calc. Okay. So when I come over here, I had problems from earlier today. I'm going to write my equation that we just found, right? Y equals, the y is already there, so 3,187.5 x plus 42,000. And it says to estimate how many years after the purchase. So we're going to go look at our graph. Now, your window is probably at negative 10, 10, negative 10, 10. And so if I go immediately to graph, I don't see my graph. Am I worried? No, because is my window correct at all? No, what do I at least need to be at on my y's? My y at least needs to go as high as 42,000, right? So when I go to my y, my window, my y max needs to be bigger than 42,000. And honestly, I might go closer to 100,000. So I'm going to go to 100,000. And I'll make my y min 0. I don't need any negative numbers, but I don't want to go much bigger than 0 because then I'm not going to really know where I am in relation to everywhere else. Now, for our x min and our x max, it's in terms of years. Do I need any negative years? No, we're going to go to 0 again. And we need to go up to at least how many years? It told us 8 years, right? We may need to go a little bit bigger. I'm going to go 10, 12, 15. And actually, if you look at your directions, do you see how it says t is in between 0 and 15? That was a nice hint for us. That is going to be our x min and max. So I'm going to use 0 as my x min, 15 as my x max, and it's because they told me that. Then I'm going to go graph, and it just says estimate. So I'm not going exactly where it is. I'm just going to estimate. So I'm just going to trace along my graph. We don't generally trace because it's not super exact. So this is not something I would suggest you do often, but it says to estimate, so we're going to trace. So I'm just going to do a little trace, and I'm trying to get from my y to be 72,500. So I'm not there yet. I'm getting close. 71. Ooh, 72. There it is. It's past 9.4. And I'm going to say it's just after 9 years, okay? You don't say I'm 17.6 years old, right? We don't measure years like that. We measure in whole numbers. So it's after 9 years, okay? So I'm going to go back to my paper and I'm going to write after 9 years. So it takes at least 9 years to get to that number. Okay. Now, this is a good enough stopping point, so I'm going to send you to lunch. Don't mess up your calculator because we're going to need this equation for at least 2 more problems, okay? Please be back by 12:10 so we can finish this lesson today, okay? Have an awesome lunch.